Hello friends, welcome to Indian Temples YouTube channel. This is your host and host Dinesh here, and today I am with a very special guest. When we upload different posts on our Instagram channel, there are often questions about the architecture of the temple. So I thought I should introduce you with someone who is an expert in this topic. Today we have with us Mr. Ramakrishna Kongalla. Welcome, sir. You may
Namaste,
okay, I
Dinesh.
think
Namaste.
yeah. You may know him from Instagram as tourism teacher. He is famous with that handle, and he, in fact, is a teacher of tourism. He is assistant professor at Indian Institute of Tourism and Travel Management, which is operated by Ministry of Tourism, Government of India. And he also loves very much documenting Hindu temples and interpret their iconology. He is involved into training tourist guides across the country, and he really loves this training part. So welcome sir, welcome to our channel.
Thank you,
सबसे
sir.
पहले
Thank you
आपसे
so
सर
much.
या सबसे पहले सर आपसे जानना चाहूँगा कि इंडियन टेम्पल्स जो हम कहते हैं, इंडियन टेम्पल एक जनरलाइज कंसेप्ट है या फिर और देर आर डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ टेम्पल्स इन इंडिया, देर आर डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ आर्कियोलॉजी, डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ टेम्पल स्ट्रक्चर्स.
Yeah. Uh, uh, Temples as a whole, we use a generic term for all the structures, okay, built in different styles across the country. But there are different temples when it comes to physicality, how they look like.
Okay.
So when it comes to iconography, there is no much difference, but then physicality, there is a lot of difference, and we can identify different styles of temples by looking at them. But one thing is, even though there are different styles of temples, even in the same style of temples also, there are temples dedicated to different gods and different sampradayas also. So
Okay.
the diversity is much in temples. We generally think
Recording in progress.
so we generally think that a temple, when we look at it as a Hindu temple, simple Hindu temple, it's not just a Hindu temple. There are many sampradayas. Okay, there is Vaishnava, there is Shaiva, there is Shakta. In Vaishnava itself, you have different sampradayas. So every sampradaya has got a different a temple, and from ancient period, these sampradayas or the communities, they have been controlling a special certain kind of temples which are there in and around their localities. This is first thing we have to understand. Otherwise, physicality we can identify each and every temple. And another important aspect also, for example, let me take the name first. Generally, North Indian north side, you call the temples as Nagara temples, and towards the south you call them as Dravidian temples. So though the two styles are different, they look very different, and Nagara style of temples in North India, they are dedicated to all gods. So whatever the gods we see in this area, the temple style do not change as per the god. Same in South also. All are Dravidian temples, though dedicated to different gods like Shiva, Vishnu, Shakti. But then there is no differentiation in the style. Rather basic iconographical differences are there through which you can identify the temple to which god they are dedicated.
Okay. So you spoke about the North Indian temple or Nagara temple that we call. I think I'm
Dinesh,
mute.
you are mute.
Just okay. Yeah. You said about two different styles here: Dravidian styles and Nagara styles. So can you just tell basic differences in the two styles? Are there a time frame?
Yeah. Basically, when we talk about the temples, the style difference comes from the geography. Basically, the North Indian or Nagara style of temples, they are constructed in sandstone. More of sandstone is used. And when it comes to South India, the temples are constructed in the granite. Because that is the stone that is found in large there. In Nagara style of temples, generally when we see, we have a shikhara or the tower that goes very high into the sky. But when it comes to South Indian temples, Dravida temples, okay, we do not, though it is a shikara, okay, we call it as a vimana. So,
Okay.
but then the slight difference is the plan of the shikara, or okay, because the shikara lies or grows on the garbhagriha, or the sanctum sanctorum, where we have the chief deity. Okay, the Moola Virat we call.
Okay.
So that is basically a square plan. But when it
Okay.
comes to Dravidian temples, okay, the plan, or the plan of this Vimana is basically octagonal. Okay, much more than the four sides. Okay, you have six
Okay.
to eight, okay, 12 sides. That is one thing.
Okay.
And roughly it, okay, more or less it looks like kind of okay, circular structure. So when you let me come okay, step by step. The differences between
Okay.
Nagara and Dravida temples are, the Dravidian temples have gopurams, okay, the lofty entrances, whereas the Nagara temples you do not find such lofty entrances. And when there are entrances, Dravida temples, obviously, so the wall construction around the temple is called as prakaram. Prakaram in the sense the compound wall. So if a compound
Okay.
wall is a square or a rectangular compound wall, it will have four entrances and four gopurams will be there. And if there are
Okay.
many layers of prakarams, so all the layers of prakarams will have different entrances. So the number okay, increases or decreases, okay, visa. And then next, when it comes to North Indian temples, you do not find gopurams, because there are no prakarams, or okay, the official okay, the proper compound. And
Okay.
the basic difference is the jagati, or the platform. When you look at South Indian temples, Dravida temples, it is very flat. It starts right from the ground. But when you look at the Nagara temples, they are placed on a very high platform, almost 6 feet to, okay, 12 feet, 15 feet, 20 feet also. For example, Kandarya Mahadev temple, that is there in Khajuraho, if you see, it has got a very lofty jagati. Okay, the base of the temple, the platform. So which you do not find in South Indian temples. In South Indian temples, another important aspect you see is the Dvaja Stamba, or the flag post,
Okay. Okay.
in front of the temples. But then in North Indian temples, you do not see a Dvaja Stamba, okay, a flag post. This is one important characteristic. And why don't, it's not that Nagara temples were not having Dvaja Stamba. They used to have. One important ancient evidence we have about the Dvaja Stamba, or the flag post, is the Heliodorus pillar, or Garuda Stamba, that we have in Besnagar near Vidisha. So that was
Okay.
the flag post which was there, or before the Vishnu temple in Besnagar near Vidisha. One of okay, it dates. Uh, it is dated to at least okay, first and second century BCE. Okay,
Okay.
even okay, before that. But when it comes to South India, that has always been a practice of having Dvajastamba to identify to which sampradaya or to which god the temple has been dedicated. But what is the reason in the North India or Nagara temples that Dvajastamba has become irrelevant? Because of the attacks and invasions. Why? Because when you
Yeah.
have a Dvajastamba, it is very clearly visible from far. So if it is visible, there are attacks. So the Dvajastamba has become much irrelevant in Nagara style of architecture, and but then it has attained a prominence, much prominence. Okay, during the time of the Cholas, and then it continued, and it has attained its peak during the time of Vijayanagara rulers. That is one thing. And then one another important okay. A practical difference, okay, that is visible between Nagara and Dravida temples is, in Dravida temples you have Balipitam.
Yeah.
But in Nagara temples you don't find Balipitam. So as soon as you enter the door, okay, the Dwara, the door frame of the temple, what do you find is, you find immediately the Balipitam. In the sense, as soon as you enter into the temple, you donate something to the god. Okay, in the name of the god, you have a flower, you have some water, you have some rice, okay, some grains, so that you are offering it to the god. So it's not just for the god, but then the living organisms that are there, birds, squirrels, etc., they come and they feed on the offerings that you give, and you do it on Balipitam. A very beautiful concept that is there from times immemorial. And there is also propaganda saying that the Balipitam that is there in Dravidian temples is a sacrificial stone. The sacrificial is true, but then they think that animal sacrificial stone it is, okay, which is very wrong. Because see, whatever you have, okay, you give it to somebody, it is a sacrifice. So you have some
Right.
okay, prasadam kind of, you put it there. So you generally see most of the people in South Indian temples, after taking prasadam, they eat little and they keep little on the balipitam, so that the living organism in and around, they can feed on okay, whatever is offered. But in North Indian temples, Nagara temples, you don't find a balipitam. You don't find a balipitam, maybe because of geography and the influence of culture, and the rituals are different. Because what we used to see generally, okay, north and northwestern part, we used to see chabutras, okay, in and around the temples and royal palaces. So
Right.
their style of dedicating something to the living organisms in and around was different, and that is the reason you don't see a balipitam in Nagara styles. And after balipitam, it's not like it's not there in Nagara and it is there in Dravida, but one important aspect is the Vahana Mandapa. So it is there in North Indian temples also. Nagara temples, verily it is there, but it is irrelevant. So you see a very good Shiva Mandir, but you see a very small Nandi before it, okay, or a
Right.
small Garuda. And Vishnu temples, Garuda is much irrelevant in the Nagara temples. But when it comes to South Indian temples, if it is a Vishnu temple, you see a very dedicated Garuda Mandapa. If it is a Shiva temple, and a dedicated Vishnu temple, and a dedicated Nandi Mandapa, if it is a Shiva temple. So
Okay.
a slide. So, but at the end of the day, see the iconographical similarities. They are same. In the sense, if there is Shiva, there has to be Vishnu accompanied by his Vahana. If it is a Vishnu, it has to be Garuda, okay, and if it is Shakti, then it has to be a Simha. So a kind of okay, similarity, iconographical representation is okay, same. It is same.
Okay.
Either it is South Indian temples or North Indian temples. The physicalities have changed, maybe because of the culture, geography, and the invasions that we have been seeing. So that is the reason. Yeah.
We talked about the differences between the two temples. There
Yes.
could be there are some similarities as well in the architectural style. So can you
Yes.
list down some similarities of the both architecture styles?
The similarities, in the sense, yeah, when it comes to terminology and the parts of a temple, okay, you do not find okay, much similar, because the terminology that is used in the okay, North Indian Nagara temple almost is similar when it comes to Dravidian, with some changes. Okay, for example, you have a okay, a base which is called as Jagati or Pita, and in Dravidian temples also you have the base, and after that you have a Dwara. Okay, then in Nagara temples also you have a Dwara. You have a Torana in North Indian Nagara temples also you have a Torana. And in Nagara temples you have a mandapas. Okay, generally if it is a smaller mandapa, you call it as Ardha Mandapa, then Mukha Mandapa, okay, and then Ardha Mandapa and Maha Mandapa, okay, and then Antrala in the sense that little gap between the mandapa and the Garbhagriha, which is
Okay.
little separated actually. So
Okay.
these all parts, the mandapas are there in Dravidian temples as well, and mandapas have got a lot of importance. Okay, and then after mandapa, Garbhagriha. Okay, so it is the same, the Garbhagriha, the womb of mother, or the central okay, point, the focal point is the same in the North Indian Nagara temple and the Dravidian temple. And if it is Garbhagriha, then you have a Moola Virat. So Moola Virat okay, is there. And if it is Moola Virat, then there are also rules. If it is Shiva, then on the walls of the Garbhagriha, who has to be on the right, who has to be on the left. That is iconographical part, which we will not dwell into. And over the Garbhagriha, you have Shikara, which is also in Dravidian temples. You also have Shikara. But then in Dravidian temple, along with the Garbhagriha, okay, the Shikara included, the total portion is called as Vimana. Whereas in Nagara style of temples, you separate both the Shikara and Garbhagriha, and you see them as a different style.
Different.
Why? Because there is a reason. Why does that happen in North Indian temple? Because the temples during the temple evolution, during the era of Guptas, especially in North India, uh, the addition of shikara was okay. It's not that there were no shikaras, because we have enough numismatical evidences like the dynasties of Audumbaras, the Kushanas, okay, Audheyas, okay, Yaudheyas. All these people on their coins, they have uh, they had they had struck the coins which shows clearly the shikaras were there. But
Okay.
then due to a lot of different, okay, distance, okay, and silence for many days, the construction activity was okay, not there. So after Guptas have started, so initially there were no shikras. They were later additions, and that is the reason they have always seen Garbhagriha as a separate part and the shikara as a separate element. So, and then the terminology also, okay, the kapotas, in the sense the bulged, okay, what do you say, the elements that come out of the walls of the temples are same in North Indian temples and South Indian temples. Then the
Okay.
out of, okay, exterior of the temple, let us say Garbhagriha, you find small what do you say, crevices or small okay, spaces, okay, and in these spaces you have the avatars of the god who is inside the Garbhagriha. So it is same in okay, north, but in Nagara temples they are called as Anuprasthas, okay, and in South Indian temples, Dravida temples, they are called as Koshta. So wherein
Okay.
you have okay, the murtis of the gods, and that is how and then you have a chajja, okay, which is okay, then you have brackets, okay, karnikas, okay, then it is there in Dravidian temples also. And then okay, so, and another important aspect is the North Indian temple is a representation of a human body when he is standing. So you have feet,
Okay.
you have the knees, you have thighs, you have waist, then you have shoulder and the neck, okay, and the shikha. Same way, when it comes to Dravidian temple, it is also representation of the body, no doubt. But the only difference is it is a representation of a body when someone is lying on the ground. So
Okay.
Nagara is standing and the Dravidian is the lying on the ground. This is the
Okay.
basic understanding.
Okay. Very interesting information, sir.
Yeah.
We talked about Dravidian temples. We talked about Nagara temples. But if we go back into time, so chronologically, can you tell our audience about different kind of temples that existed long before the Dravidian and Nagara temples, and the
Yes, yes.
chronology of different structures that developed with
Other
time?
temples, yes.
Yeah.
Generally, when it comes to the temple styles, I would like to separate the time period like okay, ancient okay, era, then the classical era. Why am I calling it as a classical era? Because this is the time when the temple evolution has happened and it has reached its zenith, okay, and
Okay.
the base. It's not that it was not there earlier, it was there. And then the medieval okay, era. In these three okay, important phases, in ancient phase you can look at the Vedic temples. So there were Vedic temples, we have enough and Vedic murtis also, worship of in the temples were there. And this we have literary evidences for this. For example, we have Ashtadhyayi written by Panini, and in his book in many places he refers to temples and murtis also. And Chanakya in his Ardhashastra also, okay, because immediately after okay, Buddha, because almost we can consider him like the contemporary of Buddha with okay, few years of difference. So in
Okay.
his Arthashastra he writes that people in his kingdom, they used to make murtis and they used to sell the murtis for their living, which happens
Okay.
even today also. The
Right.
sculptors, they sculpt the murtis, and till the murtis are in their home, they are just stone structures. But then when they reach the temple, they become god. So that is what he meant when he has written it in his Arthashastra. So Vedic temples were there, but Vedic period basically even in literature also, ancient literature also, it is referred to as Mahavana period. Mahavana period, in the sense population was less and the
Okay.
forests were more. So everywhere across a lot of forest was available, and the material that was used for constructing temples was timber, wood. And one proof we get is from the palace ruins of okay, the Mauryan dynasty, Ashokan palace. which is there in Kumrahar and Bulandi Bagh of Patna. So from there we get very good evidence that the temples once upon a time, even the domestic palaces were also constructed of wood. So it means they were constructed absolutely. And then later on, Vedic, and then later, after Vedic times, then we have Indus Valley civilization. In Indus Valley civilization, we have started using the bricks, the usage of bricks, the terracotta, the baked earth, material was used for making that. And we have enough evidences of the semicircular temples in the Indus Valley civil. We have archaeological evidences, and we have evidences of the murtis also, especially the Shivalinga that is found in the Indian what do you say, Indus Valley sites, that we have. And then after this, then we also have the dynasties after the Mauryas, post Mauryas, the dynasties like Yaudheyas, the dynasties like Audumbaras and Kushanas. Especially Kushanas, initially they were they have come from from other region, but still after coming to India, initially they have were the worshippers of Shiva. So almost, and their names also, where the names of the kings were also named after the god Shiva. So on the coins of Kanishka, the Kushanas, you find the murtis of Shiva related to Shiva, and the coins of Audumbaras and the Yaudheyas, you find the temples, and how they were constructed. Most probably they may be of wood, or some other material, that could go waste, that could not stand the environment or the nature. So this is how the three eras in ancient India, with evidence, we have enough proofs and evidences to prove all the claims that I have been talking. When it comes to the classical era, so classical era was the time when the construction techniques have reached peak. Initially, they started with the cave temples, for example, which was already there, in practice. For example, if you go to Bihar, you have Barabar caves, which were the stone was removed and they have constructed. The same way Ajanta Elloras during the time of Vakatakas, in Maharashtra. So such cave digging activity was there. And in south, especially during the time of Pallavas and Chalukyas, in Karnataka region Chalukyas, and in Tamil Nadu region Pallavas, these people were excavating digging the caves, the stones, and they were creating the caves and beautiful temples by Pallavas, like Mahabalipuram, monolithic temples by Chalukyas in Badami, wonderful, Badami cave temples are one of the advanced and magnificent temples that we can watch, and advanced also in that generation, because during the same time when Guptas were constructing the structural temples, in the sense adding stone after stone, you are constructing a temple that is called a structural temple. You do not find that advanced which you find in Badami cave temples. So cave temples were there, and after cave temples, we have structural temples, especially started during the time of Guptas in North India. And during the same time, slowly Pallavas and the Chalukyas have started, picked up by the Cholas. And then Chola temple activity was a very huge and grand activity. Chola temple construction techniques, they have achieved their zenith during that time. So, and during this dynasties like Guptas, Cholas, Pallavas and Chalukyas, the temple styles have evolved. So in the north, it has been Nagara style of temple. In south, it has been Dravida style of temple. And in Karnataka, Maharashtra region, and then they started calling it as Vishra in the sense very spacious. Why? Because in this region, there used to be 2-3 gods. Like if it is Shiva, then along with Shiva there used to be Ganesha, and there used to be Subramanya also, and there used to be Parvati. So when 4 garbhagrihas are there, so 4 garbhagrihas need a very good spacious mandapa. So because of that, they started constructing very spacious temples, following the style of North Indian style and Dravidian style, because they were in junction of both the regions. and these temples are called as Visara temples. And along with this Visara temples, then okay, you find many other styles of temples also, like that little variant, the a small variant of Nagara style only, you call them as Kalinga temples. They are really Nagara temples, but then little variation in how they look like. Then if you go towards the west, you have the Marugurjara style of temples. They are verily Nagara temples only with little variation. So all this basic and these style of temples, the temples that we are talking, Nagara, Dravida, Visara, Kalinga, Marugurjara, etc., all these styles of temples are the established, okay, temple styles, okay, for many years to come, okay, in the future. And when it comes to medieval times, okay,
Sir,
we have
I would like to
yeah.
just add. It will be
Yeah.
beneficial if you can also give some examples of these temples, because people would like
Yeah.
would be able to associate the style with the image in their mind.
Yes. Now, when I say Nagara style of temples, very good. Okay, best preserving temples today, Nagara style are the Khajuraho group of temples. The Khajuraho group of temples, and then when you talk about the Dravidian style of temples, the temples that are there in Tanjavur, okay, the Brihadishwara temple, the temples of Mahabalipuram, temples in Kanjipuram, okay, temples in Madurai. So all these are okay, Dravidian style of temples. And when it comes to Vishra's style of temples, then Hoysala temples, the Hoysala rulers of 11th century, okay, 10th century onwards. So these people have constructed wonderful temples, and one of the most intricate temples in the world, and who will never be able to construct as beautiful as Hoysala temples. They are the ultimate okay, achievement of temple construction style. So Hoysala temples represents the Visara style of temples. And then in Karnataka region only, the same Chalukyas, what they have done is, okay, for example, we have a site called Pattadakkal site, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This site has got both styles of temples. You have separate Dravidian style of temples and then separate Nagara style of temples. In the sense, here we have to understand, it's not that today the style is prevalent in the region. That is the reason we are calling North India Nagara style of temples, South India Dravida style of temples. But when you see at Pattadakkal, which is in okay, South India, you also find a Nagara, and these temples are called as Rekha Nagara, in the sense like a line. Okay, you have
Okay.
their Shikara, and they are called as Rekha Nagara. And Dravidian temples also in the same complex, and that is the reason they have given World Heritage status, because of its cultural importance. Okay, because it is the
Okay.
connecting link between the north and the south. A wonderful complex. And then Kalinga style of temples, all the because we have Ekamara Kshetra, okay, Bhuvaneshwar, which is the city of temples, it is called. All the temples are Kalinga style of temples. The only one thing is here the Shikara looks like a standing okay, water can. It looks like a water
Okay.
can, okay, spherical and round. And when it comes to Marugurjara style of temples, they very look like okay, the Nagara temples only. The only one difference is like for example, you have a pot. From the pot you have some sprouting designs. Okay, some latha is coming outside. So such styles you find them on the walls of Marugurjara temples, on the faces of the Shikara of Marugurjara temples. And Marugurjara temples, in the sense, the temples that you find in Gujarat, the temples that you find in Rajasthan are Marugurjara temples. For example, uh, the Modera Sun Temple is one good example of okay, the Marugurjara temple. Okay, today its Shikara do not stand, but then it still is there. Almost all the Jain temples, the Jain temples that are there are okay. See, today we differentiate it as Jain and Hindu, but then they're all temples, and it was the same. Okay, with slight difference with the Sampradayas, and they all have followed the same style of Marugurjara style, which is a variant of Nagara. So which you find in Gujarat and Rajasthan regions.
Okay. Yeah. So you were talking further on the temples in classical
You are on
period.
mute, Dinesh ji.
Okay. Just hold on. Yeah. we were talking about different temple styles from classical India. If we go further in time, you maybe you can throw some light on the temples in medieval times as well.
Medieval times, yes.
Yeah.
In medieval times, somewhere around, say, okay, it's almost like during the same time that was happen, the temple construction was happening in other parts of the country. You go to this, okay, the Trans Himalayan region or the Shivaliks. So in the Himalayas, the south of Himalayas, places like Himachal, Uttarakhand, okay, then Nepal, Sikkim, okay, till Arunachal. So all this Assam and Arunachal area. So they were done in wood, but they have used stone along with. And these temples that you find in Trans Himalayan region are called as Katkuni temples. Katkuni in the sense the stone and the wood.
Okay.
Now they have used this style is used in even domestic buildings also. Why? Because this is an anti-earthquake technique which they use, so that okay, whenever there is an earthquake, okay, the energy releases and they stand back again in the same position. So here in these temples, okay, it's not that okay, there are no structural temples. For example, you go to Uttarakhand, okay, Almoda, near Almoda you have okay, for example, in Uttarakhand you have Jageshwar Dham. So wherein one of the okay dhams of okay, one of the Jyotirlingas, it is considered. So the stone temples are there, okay, transported from okay, far off places, and they have constructed. Even the sun temple that is there in okay, Almoda is also one good example. They have constructed on a top of the hill. But then very few you have very examples of okay, such temples. But then they have used wood much, okay, for intricate designs and all. Even the murtis in the temples, okay, because the stone of this Himalayan region is a silt stone, okay, detritus in the sense okay, the waste, collection of waste for many days, and because of the pressure it has turned into a stone. But when you carve on the stone, it breaks. It never used the stone for murtis in the Himalayan region. Rather, they have used wood. Okay, even for the Mula Virat also, Mula Vigraha also, they have used okay, wood. So they have the combination of wood and stone for constructing a temple, and intricate designs are done on wood but not on the stone. Katkuni style of temple in Trans Himalayan region. And when it comes to eastern part, you find two styles of temples in Bengal region. One is the Ratna temples. They are called as Ratna. Why are they called as Ratna temples? Because generally it is from times immemorial, the huts, the houses in Bengal region were built in a okay, dome shaped huts. So the shelter over that okay, hut, okay, which is called as chela, which looks like a dome, little bent structure. Chela it is called as. So over the chela, what they used to do is they used to have a shikara, a tower. So these temples which are built over that chela, okay, or with one shikara, they are called as Ekashila temples, Eka Ratna temple. So that tower on the okay, temples of the temples is called as Ratna. Okay, Ratna means jewel. It looks like a okay, diamond kind of jewel. And if the same Ekaratna is cornered, okay, by four other like minarets you see in Taj Mahal, if they are cornered, then it becomes Pancharatna. Why? Because you have 5 jewels.
Okay.
And if another floor increases, so you have 4, then in the center you have another layer, another story, and over that you have another Ratna tower, and in the 4 corners, now 5 plus 4 becomes 9, Navaratna. So such kind of temples you find in West Bengal region. And then terracotta region, terracotta temples already are there. So the terracotta and Ratna, they both are combined. So Mritika temples we call it. There are also some places wherein you do not find any Ratna towers in the temples, but then purely they are made of terracotta. This is one thing. And going further towards Assam region, okay, when okay, this dynasties like Koch dynasty, okay, Kamra dynasties were there, okay, in the region of Kamarupa, Assam. So we have okay, the temple, the famous temple Kamakya temple. So Kamakya temple is there on Nilachal hills, okay, on these Neelachal hills, because this style was developed by this coach kings, and in the region, this Neelachal hills region, then they started slowly calling this style of temple construction as Neelachal. And what is the speciality of Neelachal is the shikara of the temple itself looks like a dome. The Kamakya temple
Okay.
dome, if you see, it looks like a dome. It's not that there was no proper shikara earlier. There was a shikara which okay, would have looked like other North Indian, maybe like Kalinga style of temple shikara. But then it fell, and later on, when they were trying to construct it, they could not do it, and they had to use bricks. Okay, like the Vijayanagara people have used bricks in the
Okay.
superstructures. Okay, the above structures. So they have used brick, and that is the reason they have made it as a dome. And over the dome, what they have done is they in different layers, like a shikara, okay, like a minaret, they have added rings. So these rings are called as anga shikaras. Anga in the sense the bodily parts. Okay, like this. So Ratna architecture, then Ratna style of temples. Okay, Nilachal style of temples, Katkoni style of temples, and then when you go towards Kerala region, okay, you have Kastamaya. Okay, Kastamaya temples, it's the temples that are made of wood. It's not definitely 100% is wood. The base of the temple is full of stone, and the superstructure of the temple is full of wood that they have done. Why? Because wood is plentifully available in the region.
Okay.
So, for example, the Padmanabha Swami temple that you see is not 100% in stone. Okay, and the main temple is not 100% wood also, but other temples, smaller temples that are there in the complex of Padmanabha Swami temple, all their superstructures are constructed in wood, which you call it as Kastamaya, which has been developed during the time of 14th and 15th centuries. So these are 3-4 temple styles, okay, in medieval era.
Maybe maybe you can touch upon the Maratha style temples or Hemadpanthi style temples as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
Maratha style of temples. So Maratha style of temples are very Nagara style of temples. Okay,
Okay.
they follow Nagara style only, just with small differences. What are those small differences? After the Marathas have taken over, there was this person called Hemadpanthi. Hemadpanthi was the prime minister of the Marathas. Okay, and he started okay, the few elements that were prevalent in the society. It's not that he has okay, suddenly brought them up. The lighting of the lamps was a common practice in the temple. So what he has done is he has constructed a separate structure with the stone, and they started inserting it in the temples, which is called as Deep Mala. Deep Mala. Okay, wherein
Yeah.
you must have seen, this is a very grand for the temples like Triambakeshwar, etc. This is a grand activity wherein a person will climb onto the structure, and he will light all the lamps, and he will come down. So that is a beautiful scene to okay enjoy. So Deep Mala, okay, is one structure that we find along with the temples, and then the Toranas. Yes, earlier you do not find many Toranas in the temples. Only at important places like Dwaras or the Dwara of the Garbhagriha you find. But then when it comes to the Hemadpanthi temples, okay, even in the mandapas, entrances, and even in the okay, the open okay, baradaris also, Marathas used to had a lot of floral arches or the floral toranas. This is one another element. And then another small difference, if you look at the temples of Maheshwar, in the region Maheshwar, okay, it looks same like Nagara style only, but then at the base, why? Because the reason is earlier temples, okay, by the size of Garbhagriha, when you okay built the shikara, it has to go very high into the sky. But then maybe because of limited resources, or maybe because that manpower is not available, or it takes a lot of time, the size of the shikara shrank. Okay, it became less, and because it became less in size, the base of the okay, the shikara has become bulged a little, like a pumpkin,
Okay.
kakada. So sometimes the shikara of these temples is also called as kakada shikara. Okay, kakada style of temples also that you find. For example, if you look at the temples in Maheshwar, okay, on the Ghat section, okay, region, okay,
Hmm.
you will find it very beautifully, little bulged. Okay, but verily the Nagara style of variant only. This is one thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yesterday I had run a poll on the Instagram channel where I asked people to mention their questions for this particular segment of show.
Session. Yeah.
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 So one of the question was about Swarga Mandapa in the temple of Kopeshwar in Khidrapur near Kolhapur. You find an
Yes.
open roof that is called as Swarga Mandapa. Same structure is found in couple of other temples in Maharashtra. So
Okay.
some people wanted to know what was the purpose of Swarga Mandapa and in which time frame or in which region it was prevalent.
See that is up to us how we give the name to the mandapa or the Maha Mandapa, because the Swarga Mandapa that we are talking in Khidrapur, okay, is the Maha Mandapa, and the Maha Mandapa concept is very well there in Dravida temples and every other styles of temples, because
Okay.
Maha Mandapa is where you are standing, you stand, okay, worship the god. Maha Mandapa that is there is sometimes called as Ranga Mandapa, okay, or Swarga Mandapa also it is called. So basically, why is it? And if you take Hoysala temples in south, okay, which I call it as Vishra temples, there also you find a very good Swarga Mandapa, but then they call it as Bhuvaneshwari. Bhuvaneshwari in the sense everything that is there in the on the earth, all the blessing that is there in the earth will be there here at the center of this mandapa, and that is the reason they call it as Bhuvaneshwari. And okay, in other places they simply call it as Maha Mandapa, okay, and in Jain temples they call it as okay, Ranga Mandapa or Swarga Mandapa. Why? Because in Jain temples when you look at Maha Mandapa, okay, the top there are okay 16 Vidya Devis, Shodasha
Okay.
Vidya Devis, okay, the goddesses of knowledge, okay, different 16 knowledges. So when you are standing there in that Maha Mandapa, you are blessed enough,
Okay.
in the sense when you are blessed enough, that is the place which is called as Swarga. We have no tension, no okay problems, you are free of problems, you have been bestowed with enough from the god, you call as heaven, okay, and the Maha Mandapa is basically called as considered heaven. And when you look at the Maha Mandapa of Khidrapur also, okay, that is a place, okay, wherein you are standing worshipping the god and all the elements that are there, okay, the elemental gods, okay, all the elemental gods, and then Ashta Dikpalas who are there in the Mandapa, they all bless you enough, okay, the Panchabhutas, Ashta Dikpalas, okay, then Saptamatrikas, okay, all and then Navagrahas, so all their presence and they are blessing you enough, and because of that it is called as Swarga Mandapa. So it's not that Swarga Mandapa is there only to one temple. All the mandapas of the temples which are Maha Mandapas can be called as Swarga Mandapa, and with different I said you in Hoysala temples they are called as Bhuvaneshwari. And see, there is lot of similarity between the names Swarga Mandapa and Bhuvaneshwari, in the sense the heaven. So the Ishwari of the earth, okay, the god of the earth will bless you there enough, and that's it.
And what was the reason behind the open roof, open to sky?
Generally, see, because I have not visited Khidrapur and I should not be very confident in commenting, but then uh, there was no concept of okay open mandapa
Okay.
okay in the temple construction styles always, because you okay, the mandapas that are there are always covered, they were not open. So somewhere I doubt that okay, the temple when it was constructed itself was open, it must not have been, okay, because as far as the temple style I know, later, okay, maybe because okay, the shikara that is there, okay, that was there on the top of the mandapa must have been moved, or they have removed, or something must have happened, okay,
Okay.
and that is the reason okay, it must have gone. Otherwise there used to be one practice also, maybe the another reason I say is like that of a Konark Sun temple, okay, maybe that of okay, the Somnath okay temple, okay, there used to be a small areas wherein at certain okay muhurtas, okay, you used to have okay, the visibility of some nakshatras, the visibility of Chandra, the visibility of Surya. Okay, because we used to have okay, the natural way of calculation of the calendars, through the shadows and through the visibility of stars and the muhurtas calculations. Maybe for the purpose of muhurta calculations, there are fair chances that these people must have kept it open. But then
Okay.
open Mahamandapas was not at all a prevalent thing, because they always have, because they used to use other ways to calculate the muhurtas, okay, in a different manner, okay, which we can see in the temple floor, okay, floors, the stones of the flooring in the temple. We can see in temple there are separate stone slabs wherein the shade creates okay, the muhurtas